how is Prabhupada going to do this? How is he going to first exist untouched within the midst of all these young people who have no idea about Krishna consciousness, but have some sincerity that there is something, a deeper purpose of life. They don't have any idea about Krishna consciousness, practically speaking, but they have an idea that life must be worth more than just living, getting a job, having family, getting old, and then khatam ho gaya. Then just gone. And if that's all life is, then I'm going to enjoy like anything. Some of them went that route. But how is Prabhupada going to interact with the sincere ones amongst that group? And almost every single person who joined him in the beginning was in that group. And how is he going to give them Krishna consciousness in such a way that first of all they're encouraged to take it up seriously, to devote their life to it, to preach. Encouraged, and they're young, how is he going to make it exciting for them? And yet, how is he going to give them the real substance of Krishna consciousness? Because his desire is to spread Krishna consciousness. That's on one side, but on the other side, on the internal side, he wants to bring everyone to get the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and go to Goloka Vrindavan. And it can't be done just superficially. One has to become fully deep in one's Krishna consciousness. Now, how is he going to lead these people on the road? So, of course, in one sense, he can only lead so far. There's so much has to do with the sincerity of the individuals. How many people are going to actually hold on so tightly that as the ups and downs and the waves of the material life, as it hits them as they get older, because they won't remain young forever. How are they going to deal with that in the Krishna consciousness movement? How many of them are going to stay on the boat, so to speak? So that is more up to them than him. But his goal is to give them the real thing, but in such a way, the real thing, not just trying to accumulate followers, more and more followers, but the real thing, so that they can get the real goal of that real thing, which is prema pramarto mahan, to get love for Krishna, and yet at the same time be enthusiastic to spread Krishna consciousness. Sometimes I think of I call it a mantra that Prabhupada gave the young Americans who were he wanted his books distributed. Oh, he really wanted his books distributed. So what did he tell them? He told them to double it. What does that mean? That means every year, no matter how many books you distributed that year, next year you have to do twice as many. And no matter how many you do that year, next year it's twice as many. It's the perfect thing to engage the minds of all these young, ambitious people. And because whatever you do, next year it's going to be twice as much. So that's one thing he did. But how did he interact? That's what really interests me at this particular time. And as soon as I heard these particular lectures, they took place in 1968, the end of 68, and then some of them the beginning of 1969, when the movement was just starting to grow. And no longer was he the village guru where everyone had a very, very personal relationship with him, but yet he wasn't the distant figure where you couldn't expect to speak to him your whole life, practically speaking. The only time, I know disciples of Prabhupada who never even saw Prabhupada, and almost all the disciples of Prabhupada, I would say the vast majority never had a personal conversation with him. They saw him only on the Vyasa-san giving a lecture when he was like a lion. And when you are representing the Guru Parampara, the whole philosophy of Krishna consciousness, from sitting on the Vyasasan, and someone asks you a challenging question or a doubting question, then you got a response like a lion would respond. But Prabhupada was many things, not only that. So this particular mood, I always perceived, was somewhere in between. He wasn't the person that anyone can just at any time of the day knock on his door and walk in his room, but he wasn't just only official either, or just the Prabhupada sitting on the Vyasasan. So could you put on the Los Angeles questions? And the way we've organized this, let's see if technology will bless us. We've organized it that there's this series of questions. So we have these Seattle questions and Los Angeles questions, and we'll hear some of them in Prabhupada's answers to them today. And then Krishna willing, tomorrow we'll hear some of the other ones. So we've organized it that there are questions, and then we'll go through them all. We'll just hear all the questions, and while we're going through them, I would like what you to do is pick one that you'd really like, one or two that you'd really like to hear the answer to out of all the questions that are there. Well, there's the first ones are coming up. Now, some of them, almost all of them have audio, and that first one is one that says no audio, and that's a Seattle one anyway. But interesting questions. When we're engaged in spreading Krishna consciousness by this singing, because they're all on the Sankirtan party, or a lot of them, or selling back to Godheads, or speaking with people, if through our senses, like seeing or hearing or touching or smelling, our mind gets distracted even while we're engaged in selling back to Godheads, then how can we always return to that point of remembering, even though our senses are being dragged by billboard signs and so many, I presume, other things, because there they are. And it's a question that all of us who are, how are we going to stop being distracted while in the world? That's one question. Next question. How does the devotee go about practicing this Krishna consciousness when he's asleep? Because Prabhupada would sometimes say, 24 hours a day you can become Krishna conscious. So this is a very innocent question, isn't it? Because they weren't so guarded in their questions. Is this the right question, or shouldn't I answer? What are people? They basically was open enough at this time that people asked all these questions. When household or women raise their children in Krishna consciousness, this seems to be an indirect service for Krishna. Have any of you ladies who trying to raise their children think that it's indirect? Well, there it goes. Here's your question. Should they try to serve him more directly by, maybe cooking in the temple, or being, something like this more directly, or is raising children and just having the household function? Is that enough service? Is that enough service? What is he going to answer? That was one thing we saw about Prabhupada. You never could tell, you couldn't predict which way he was going to answer a question, because it was coming, his answers came from a different level. Now I have a question from Brahma Murti. I don't know who Brahma Murti is, or if he got the name correctly or incorrectly. Why did people in the past ages sacrifice animals? And how did Krishna put a stop to this? Speaking about murtis, I recently saw something that Krishnamurti said, and Prabhupada was always, raise your hand if you've heard of Krishnamurti. Very, very famous in the, especially in the West, but he was in the Theosophical Society. Anyway, it's a long story what happened to him, but he ended up being, anyway, this will give you a hint by this little story. Someone asked him if he was very, very popular, and someone asked him, are you an atheist? And he said, I used to be, until I realized I was God. Prabhupada criticized him only. Anyway, he was very clever. Next. I don't know if it was Brahmamurti or Krishnamurti or anyway. There are so many stories of Lord Chaitanya converting so many rascals by just his presence. They would chant Hare Krishna. How can we get his mercy so that we can help the people around us to chant Hare Krishna? A preacher's question. If Maya takes hold on one, what is the quickest way to go back to Krishna? You like that question? Prabhupada, when we're out on Sankirtan chanting, what would be the best way for us to engage the crowd to become participants in the chanting with us? What would be the best something of finding a way to do that? Next, what is the position of Lord Shiva? Does Lord Shiva have a wife, like a consort? Is Lord Shiva a devotee of Lord Krishna? Lord Shiva's relationship with Durga, does he have a relationship with Durga? What is the outcome of continuous practice of the chanting Om? What do you believe in reference to Ramakrishna? Now that's an interesting, we'll see what the response of that one's going to be. He was in the Hindu faith. What do you think of Kundalini or Raja Yoga? Is it an offense to wear red or blue in the Krishna temple? Why is this true? Because in the Nectar of Devotion Bhaktivedanta Sammadha it says that if you said, give me lots of money for Krishna, are you a miser? When Krishna came here, did he take a spiritual master too? When you had that heart attack, did you feel the pain? Are you in this world? Now, the one who asked this question is a 12 or 13-year-old boy named Bhurijana. He was the son of Shilavati, the Pujari in the Los Angeles temple. And in the middle of it, he says, everyone said I shouldn't ask this question because they said it was a stupid question. But I'm going to ask it anyway. Something like that. What is the difference? I've heard terms like incarnation, expansion, and plenary expansion, like Krishna incarnates himself, expands himself. Well, what's the difference between all these things? It is said that once you achieve the Godhead, once you go back to Krishna, that you don't fall down. But it is also said that we came from there originally. If we came from there, how did we fall if we were already there? Or how did we fall if we were already there if we can't fall? So this question, it's a never-ending question. It was going on then, it goes on forever. Did you say that Krishna could not be worshipped directly? Could not be? How will it be possible, Prabhupada, for a man whose mind is clouded to constantly chant Hare Krishna? A man who is always thinking thoughts about family, friends, country, nations. How can he chant Hare Krishna constantly? In the past, when there were men who practiced yoga, concentration on Krishna within the heart, when they performed this, were they rendering devotional service? Is it all right to disturb the mind of the envious? Why is that? Because it says in the Bhagavad Gita, what? Do not disturb the mind. Well, why is he asking that question? We'll find out. Maybe because he feels like really wants to do it. We don't know yet. Okay, a little bit higher. Oh yeah. In this Vedic verse, Tattvamasi, is this where the Mayavadis have begun their impersonal philosophy? Thou art that? Or how do you, something Krishna, by talking about it, do you reach a certain spiritual level by studying? We'll find out what that one is if someone wants to hear the answer to that. You said that the spirit soul is 1/10,000th the tip of a hair. In the spiritual sky, is the spirit soul still just that big? Well, I guess that would solve the space problem. It is written in the Bhagavad Gita that we just read from about how you think that Krishna will provide for us. And also, further in the Gita, it is said that God helps those who help themselves. Well, what is the recreation for a Krishna conscious person? Is Kshirodakshaya Vishnu Supersoul present in non-living entities like rocks and matter? Okay, now, think about which question you'd like to hear the answer to. Okay, should we start at the beginning? We'll have to start somewhere. So, okay, if you know one that you'd like to hear the answer to, just raise your hand. Yes, you were first that I saw.
This Kundalini one?
Okay, could you?
No idea.
Couldn't, that's the first one there. Okay. Okay, but we'll start in the, I think that's one. Now, in some of these, there's some of Prabhupada's lecture in the beginning. Now, right after we hear this, I'm going to ask you what you remember. So that means you better, if you're going to only remember 20%, you better be good at mind reading to know which one we're going to ask. Okay, ready? Go ahead. Oh, that was the one there's no audio. The whole one. Let's see what happens when we press the button. I think Srila Prabhupada answers questions, Seattle, 1968. October 11th, how many years ago? Without taking out your mobile phone? A young man says, what is the outcome of continuous practice of the chant Om? Prabhupada. Om is also another form vibration of Lord. Om. That is also accepted in Bhagavad Gita. So Hare Krishna Om, practically the same value. But this is easier. Yes. And because Hare Krishna was chanted by Lord Chaitanya specifically, Om is generally added when just beginning one mantra. That is the Vedic way. Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam Sada Prasanti. What's the rest of it? Prasanti? Surya. Om is also addressing the Lord. Om. And Hare Krishna is also addressing. But this is easier and recommended for this age. Otherwise, transcendentally or spiritually, there is no difference. Young woman number 3. What do you believe in reference to Ramakrishna? He was in the Hindu faith. Not Hindu faith. What is your belief in Ramakrishna? This is a young man. Well, I've read a little about him, and he's supposedly, Prabhupada, what he is, what you have studied about him. He was an incarnation of God. He believed in Jesus Christ, he believed in Buddha, he believed in yoga. I was just wondering if you have anything to do with him. Okay. We have got original Krishna. So original Krishna includes everyone. Krishna, Govindam, Adi Purusham, Tamaham Bhajami. So if you believe in the original, the categories automatically come. But the categories under the influence of Maya becomes different. So if you want to study any person, you must have some standard way of studying. How have you accepted this Ramakrishna as incarnation? What is the authority? Simply suppose if someone says, I am incarnation, will he be accepted? If somebody comes here and says, I am President Johnson, will it be accepted like that? And if someone believes in that way, is he a very intelligent man? So what is your basis of taking Ramakrishna as incarnation? So far Vedic literature is concerned, we cannot accept. Because, see how gently Prabhupada tells him he's a fool? Because in the Bhagavad Gita it says, Kamas tasta ritagyanam yajanti anya devata. If someone is lost of his intelligence, then he worships demigods. What is that? Next question. What do you think of Kundalini or Raj Yoga? Prabhupada. We are practicing the Emperor Yoga. Therefore, Raj Yoga is included there. The Bhagavad Gita says, Yogi namapi sarvesham, madgate nantaratmanam, sadavan bhajate yomam, Without looking, does anyone know the verse? Swami? You've got them all like that. Anyone who is thinking, always thinking of Krishna within himself, he is the topmost yogi. Therefore, a person who is in Krishna consciousness, on the authority of Vedic literature, he is supposed to pass all kinds of yoga principles. What is your understanding of Kundalini Yoga? Do you know? Young man, it is very dangerous. Okay, so why do you accept such dangerous things? No, I just wanted to know what you thought of it. There is no need of. It is not possible to practice that yoga practice. That Kundalini process of yoga is not possible in this age. It is a very difficult process. So we should recommend not to waste your valuable time following something which is not possible to be done by you. That is our recommendation. But if you have got some hobby, that is a different thing. But it will never be successful. It is very difficult to perform. At the present age, as it is recommended and it is followed, practiced and experienced, this bhakti yoga is the only possible way for self-realization. It is made very simple, simply chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Anyone can do it. Any part of the world can people practice it, of any age. It doesn't matter whether old, young, or child. We have got many children of our devotees. Now, raise your hand if you're children of our devotees. Raise your hand. Okay, here is your turn. They are also chanting Hare Krishna. Please. All children of devotees. Very good. And many old men, like me, they're also chanting Hare Krishna. That was my turn. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. And these young boys and girls, they're also chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare. So it is universal. All these young boys and girls, they are neither Hindus nor Indians, nor do they have any knowledge of Sanskrit, but they easily pick up this Hare Krishna and chant and getting the result. So this is the easiest universal method of self-realization in the present age. Any other practice of yoga system will never be successful. It will be simply a waste of time. Okay. We can go back to the question page. Okay. Raise your hand if you have a question that you'd like to hear the answer to. You'll have to call on the roof.
The third one?
Read it.
How does the devotee go about practicing this Krishna consciousness when he is
Do you want to be able to do that? Or it's just a curious question, actually? Curious question, okay.
I think I
What-
can tell that.
Okay. All those who want to hear from Part, raise your hand. And then after we'll say, all those who want to hear from Prabhupada. Or Jagattarini, you want to hear from Part first? Okay, Part, good. Mataji will...
If your devotional service is 24 hours,
Yes? And how will you chant Hare Krishna even while you're sleeping?
in a dream,
And your dreams, yes, very good answer. Yeah. Now let's hear what Prabhupada says in answer to this question.
Dream also, yeah. Yes, just as sleep means your gross senses are stopped, but your mind works. Therefore you dream. So if you practice your mind to be engaged in Krishna consciousness, in dream also you see that you are preparing prasadam and going to sell back to Lord. That's all. Some night, when I feel hungry, I dream that I'm eating Krishna Prasad. Somebody is supplying me nice paratha. But being hungry, my hunger is not satisfied. I'm eating. Still, the dream is there. So, if you practice, this is the technique. We have to practice in this way, that when all functions of this body will stop at the time of death, we shall remember somewhere or other Krishna and success. Anyway, that is the technique.
Okay, what do you remember? Raise your hand. Yes.
I like the question was asked.
Wait. What do you remember from the last one that Prabhupada said?
Prabhupada said that, like this Prabhu said, when we're dreaming, we should dream about how we can serve Krishna.
But how to get to that state where you're dreaming and remembering Krishna? What did Prabhupada say? Raise your hand. Yes.
If we train our mind in devotional service of Krishna, then even after our gross body stops working in the night, still our mind can be
Yes.
in devotional service.
And what example did Prabhupada give that we all laughed and he laughed too?
Eating Krishna Prasad.
Yeah, so if you're hungry, then you'll dream at night of these wonderful getting paratha or whatever. So if you're hungry for serving Krishna, then you'll dream about Krishna. And if you're hungry for chanting during the day, then you'll dream of chanting at night. Raise your hand if you've ever chanted while you were dreaming and in your night it's asleep. Raise your hand. What did you think when you were chanting that way? Jai Sachi, Prabhu.
Friend was giving a class and I was doing kirtan.
Yeah. Did you enjoy?
Very nice.
Very nice. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Raise your hand if you have a question that you'd like an answer to. Yes.
When we are engaged in spreading Krishna consciousness by selling or by singing or selling back to Godhead. So
Okay.
second.
Okay, the second one.
Yeah.
If you're engaged in spreading Krishna consciousness, are you singing or selling back to God and just speaking with people?
Then,
Through our senses like seeing, and hearing, and touching, and smelling, our mind is distracted even while we engage in selling back to God. Then, how can we always return to that point of remembering? You know, our senses are being dragged by beautiful sound.
now suppose you are selling back to God. Does it not remind you Krishna? Does it not remind you about Krishna? What you are selling back to God? You could sell another popular magazine which could sell very nicely, quickly, thousands of copies. Why are you taking this back to God? For Krishna. You are not for business, you are not ordinary newspaper seller. Why are you taking back to God? Your motive is that people may know about Krishna. That is your motive. If magazine selling is your business, you can take any other sales-getting magazine, there are so many, and you can sell, you can make some profit. So, we have to mold our life in such a way that we shall always remember Krishna. Therefore, remembering Krishna is my primary business. And we have to act in such a way that we may not forget. That should be the principle. That is the secret. Therefore it is equally good for anyone, because we can engage anyone in the business of Krishna. If somebody has no knowledge, he can simply sweep over the floor of Krishna's temple, that will make him remembering Krishna, that I am cleansing the floor of Krishna's temple. He is as good as the editor of that floor.
Okay, what did Prabhupada say? What was the essence of his answer? Raise your hand. I can.
When you are giving energy to the animal, then you should think you are giving it away for Krishna. At that time you should remember Krishna, like I am doing it for Krishna.
So that means that one has to be thoughtful and think, not because there's such a tendency when you do something every day to forget why it is that you're doing it. It becomes mechanical. There's such a tendency. And what Prabhupada is saying is that we shouldn't keep that tendency. We should be thoughtful. So whatever we're doing, and he said this is the secret, this is the principle, this is the secret even, to somehow think about our activity that we're doing, and it's not only true for back to Godhead, it's true for selling back to Godhead, it's true for sweeping the floor, or it can even be done, it can be done working, taking care of children, going to school, whatever we're doing, or sweeping the floor, being editor of Back to Godhead, it all can be equal if our consciousness is actually doing it. Why? To please Krishna. I'm doing this for Krishna. May Krishna be pleased by this activity. Now, how to do our activity in such a way, or with the internal motivation that Krishna is actually going to be pleased by it. How to do our work, whatever it is, in such a way that Krishna is going to be pleased by that work. Now that's something to meditate upon. How can I do this in such a way that Krishna is going to be pleased? And if I'm thinking in that way, then I'm thinking about how to please Krishna. How can I do this so that Krishna is pleased, whatever it is we're doing? How can I do it so that Krishna is pleased? Then it's a transcendental activity, because Krishna is at the center. And as Jagattarini Mataji so aptly said about Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he preached so strongly on this one point, and it was the one point that no one wanted to hear at any time or any place, that you are not the center, and you are not the enjoyer. You are not the one who can demand that I want to see God, but you should act in such a way that the Supreme Lord sees you. Act in such a way that the Supreme Lord sees you. How can I chant my japa in such a way that Krishna will be pleased by my chanting? How will I do this? How will I do that in such a way? And that brings one out of the center and places Krishna in the center. Easier to do in one sense when the activity is very direct, but our life is meant to put Krishna in the center in whatever it is that we're doing. I thought very interesting. Okay, raise your hand. Yes, Mataji.
I think fourth question,
We're going in order, aren't we? 1, 2, 3, 4. Which one is the fourth one?
householder raising children.
Okay. Yes, okay. Householder raising children. What? So the question was, should I do something more direct? Because this seems to be indirect service. Should I do something more direct? And here's Prabhupada's answer to that part. Do you want to explain in advance what Prabhupada's going to say? I thought you'd want to say that Prabhupada's going to say that mothers should make a direct service by giving their sons sweets.
That means he is prepared to.
Oh, what happened? Okay.
That means he is prepared to undergo all kinds of material pains, birth after birth. But what he wants, he simply wants to be engaged in the service of the Lord. That is the perfection. I think you can stop it.
And you said that the spirit soul is 1/10,000th to the Hare. In the spiritual sky, is the spirit soul still just that big? The spirit soul, when he goes back.
That is his constitutional position. Either in the spiritual sky or material sky, he is the same. But as you develop in the material world, material body, similarly in the spiritual world, you can develop a spiritual body. You follow? Your position is that small particle, but spirit can expand. This expansion in the material world is being done in contact with matter. And in the spiritual world, that expansion can be done in spirit. Here, in the material world, I am spirit soul, I am different from this body. Because this body is matter. And I am living. I am living force. But this material body is not living force. And in the spiritual world, there is everything living force. There is no dead matter. Therefore the body is also spiritual. Just like water with water, water. That's all. But water and oil, distinction. Similarly, I am spirit soul, I am say oil. So I am in the water. So there is distinction. But if I am put into the oil, then everything is gone. The impersonalists, they do not develop body. They simply remain as spirit particle. That is their idea. But we Vaishnava, we want to serve Krishna, therefore you require hands, legs and mouth and tongue and everything. So we are given such body. As we are getting this body from the womb of the mother, similarly we get body in the spiritual world, not from the womb of the mother, but there is process to get, you can get.
That can't be done artificially, though. Nobody can do that.
Artificially?
If no one can develop a spiritual body just by his own being, oh, I should develop a spiritual body.
This Krishna consciousness practice is turning this material body into spiritual body. How it is done? The example I have several times given, that you put the iron in the fire, the more it is warm, it becomes fire. When the iron is red hot, that means when the iron has acquired the qualities of fire, you touch the iron anywhere, it will act as fire. Similarly, this body, although it is material, there are so many examples that a metal electrified, the metal is not electricity, but when it is electrified, you touch the metal, you get electric shock immediately. Just like the electric wire. Copper, it is copper. But as soon as it is electrified, you touch it, you get electric shock. There are so many examples. Similarly, if your body is spiritualized, then the material action is no more. Material action means sense gratification. So the more one becomes spiritualized, the material demands become nil. No more material activities. So how you can do that? The same example, you have to keep the iron constantly with the fire. You have to keep yourself constantly in Krishna consciousness. Then in this body, material body, is spiritualized. There is a Sanskrit grammatical law which is called Mayat. Mayat Pratyaya. Mayat means, there is a word just like Sarna Sarna means golden. Golden can be called, when it is made of pure gold, that is also golden. And if it is made of something else, but the coating is gold, large quantity of gold, it is also golden. Similarly, when this material body is full with spiritual activities only, this is also spiritual. Therefore, saintly persons, of course, in your country everyone is put into the grave after passing away. But in India, according to Vedic system, only very high personality devotees, their body is not burnt. It is considered spiritual. A sannyasi's body is not burnt because it is considered spiritual. So how you become spiritual? The same example. When the body has no more any material activities, simply spiritual activities in Krishna consciousness, that body is spiritual. So, if this world is become full in Krishna consciousness, nobody is working for sense gratification, only for satisfaction of Krishna, this world becomes spiritual for immediately. This requires little time to understand. Anything used for Krishna, simply for Krishna satisfaction, it is spiritual. Just like you are using this microphone for talking about Krishna, then it is spiritual. Otherwise, what is the difference between this prasadam and ordinary food? We are distributing prasadam. The people will say, what is prasadam? The same fruit we eat, and you have simply cut into pieces, it has become prasadam. They can say that. How it is prasadam? But it is prasadam. You go on eating this prasadam, you become spiritualized. Actually, this prasadam is simple thing. Just like the same example, if I take that iron, hot iron, if I say it is fire, somebody may say, oh, why it is fire? It is iron. I say, touch it. These are crude examples, but that is it. When your activities, actually, in a higher sense, there is no matter. There is no matter, everything is spiritual. Because Krishna is spiritual. Krishna is whole spirit. And the matter is one of the energy of Krishna. Therefore it is also spirit. But because it is being misused, not for the purpose of Krishna, therefore it is matter. So our Krishna consciousness movement is to spiritualize, re-spiritualize the whole thing, whole social position, political position, everything. It is a very nice movement. People should try to understand it. And if it is actually spiritualize the whole world, of course that is not possible. But the idea is like that. But at least if individually one tries this spiritualization method, his life becomes perfect.
Okay, who remembers what the question was? Want to speak of the answer? What was the question?
Why that soul is the one which making the
Is what is the size of the soul? And he's 1/10,000th, the tip of a hair. And what's his size in the spiritual world then? And what was Prabhupada's answer? Raise your hand though. Raise your hand, yes.
There is the constitutional position of the soul, whether it's in material world or in spiritual world.
Tiny and insignificant. Unavoidably tiny and insignificant, and yet we wander around thinking that we are very, very huge and important and central. And just as, even though we are tiny, we gain a material body in the material energy, according to, you could say, according to desires. Similarly, in the spiritual world, according to our desires for service, we gain a spiritual body. Exactly based on our desire to serve, and because that inner desire to serve is actually us, that's actually us, then self-realization means that we become who we actually are. And it's natural. We become who we are. Then what else did Prabhupada explain? Raise your hand if you remember something. Is that the beginning of a hand raise, that scratch?
No, he did mention though that because being Vaishnava, not impersonal, we will manifest like, a form with arms, legs, tongue, so we can serve Krishna.
Based on, yes, thank you. Based on our desire to serve. So the whole spiritual world is based on our desire to serve. And the material world is based on our desire to be central and to organize the material world so that we can enjoy. We, the most important person, the star of the whole show, can enjoy. And if you've ever tried to organize the world around you, you'll know that it doesn't work very well. But if you ever try to serve everyone, then it's completely different. That's actually natural, and that's actually constitutional. In the spiritual world, that's the nature of the spiritual world. And in the spiritual world, Krishna is the center. And there's no envy there. This is described in the 3rd canto of the Bhagavatam, that all the plants, the beautiful plants there's so many fragrant flowers and plants and wonderful, but everyone knows that Tulsi is most pleasing to Krishna, and no one is envious of her position. That is the spiritual world, because Krishna's pleasure is the center. And there's this wonderful verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita that describes that if you want to know how to develop your relationship with Krishna, it says it a little indirectly, but it's very, very, very special in Ramananda Samvad, the teachings of Ramananda Roy and Mahaprabhu, that the question is actually asked by Ramananda Roy, how do you develop that rasa after describing this high dealing between Radha and Krishna and Vrindavan? Then the question is asked, how do you develop that? And the answer is given in a very, very light way in 1 or 2 verses or 3 verses, but unlimitedly deep and meaningful. It describes, or Ramananda Roy describes, that In the spiritual world, Krishna is the center. And Srimati Radharani is giving Krishna pleasure. And all the gopis know that Radharani gives Krishna more pleasure than anyone else can give. So they're all trying to make arrangements for Radha and Krishna to be together. So that Radha can be with Krishna, so Krishna will gain the pleasure. So this is wonderful, because that means there's no envy, there's no competition, who's going to be the one with Krishna and try to push everyone else out of the way. Everyone knows that Sri Radha brings Krishna pleasure. That's the mood of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. So everyone is unified on this point. So Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says then that is wonderful. A land with no envy, with a center, Krishna, Goloka Vrindavan. But then he says, but there's something more wonderful. And that more wonderful thing is that while all the gopis are trying to bring Radha and Krishna together for Krishna's pleasure, then Srimati Radharani, she is trying to make arrangements for all the gopis to meet with Krishna individually and personally. So they're all trying to serve her or them, and she's trying to serve all of them. And that gives Krishna more pleasure than anything else. And then there's this wonderful verse, unfortunately my memory is not going to be able to do it, but it's Anyone Vishuddha Preme Rasa Pushta Tansavara something Krishna Hoya Tushta. And that means that when Krishna sees this spirit of love, Vishuddha Premi in Goloka Vrindavan, that everyone is just interested in serving each other and pushing the other forward to be with Krishna. Rasa Pushta, that is what nourishes rasa, one's own rasa. And when Krishna sees this, Krishna Hoya Tushta, Tansavada, Krishna Premi, Krishna Hoya Tushta. When he sees the spirit of this love, he becomes satisfied. And then naturally one's own relationship with him is relished, is nourished, is the exact word, pushta, is nourished. So it's the exact opposite of the mood of the material world, where everyone wants to nourish themselves and trying to push everyone else out of the way to nourish their own pleasure, the taste that they're getting in the material world, their own rasa and enjoyment. And the spiritual world is everyone's trying to push, thinking of Krishna's pleasure and what's going to give Krishna more pleasure. Radharani being with Krishna or me being with Krishna? Well, that is very easy to answer, isn't it? Because I'm feeling myself most unqualified, certainly. So therefore pushing forward others, serving others in that mood, not pushing oneself forward. Yes, Krishna, guess who's here? Yes, it's me. It's me, 1/10,000th the tip of this. Yeah, you remember that one? It's me, yes, 1/10,000th the tip of a hair in size. And there's one pastime in Sanatana Goswami's teaching where Lord Brahma wants to see Krishna. And the gatekeepers stop him and he say, you want to see Krishna? Yes, I'd like to see Krishna. Who should I tell him is coming to visit? And this is in Dwarka. And he says, tell them Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma wants to see him, because Lord Brahma means literally the greatest. So he's the greatest in the universe. So then Krishna sends back a message with the doorkeeper. He doesn't come himself. He says, which Lord Brahma? and then Lord Brahma's a bit, he's a bit, what's the word, disoriented with that question. But he says, you know the one with 4 heads? Yeah. So, okay, yes, you can come in. And then he says, "Oh yes, Lord Brahma, very good to see you." Krishna says, "What have you come here for?" He said, "Yes, but first there's a question I want to ask you. When you said Lord Brahma, which Lord Brahma, that implies that there's other Lord Brahmas than me. There's others that are central other than me. Others that are the greatest other than me." Sound familiar? Well, then Krishna said, "You'd like to see something?" He didn't say it, he just showed him that thousands of Lord Brahmas, millions of Lord Brahmas were all coming, and he could just see. They couldn't see each other, but he could see them all coming and offering their obeisances to Krishna. And he felt like an insect in the presence of elephants. So it's not possible for us to become central, either the number one powerful person in this world, nor the number one servant in this world. Not possible. Prabhupada even said one time, don't try to become a great devotee, just try to become a good devotee. So, yes. So if we can constantly keep in this mood of how to please Krishna, then that naturally our spiritual relationship is pushta, it is nourished. Now here's the question. You think about it. What stops us from constantly thinking about how to please Krishna? Or not, you can't even answer it, what stops us, but rather think about what stops me. Wait, no, don't. No, you don't even have to raise your hand for this one. We have counseling sessions after. But just think about it. What stops me? Well, I know what stops, one of the things that stops me, but I'm not going to tell you. But this is what we want. One could generalize and say, really, it's lack of sincerity. Yes, I want to serve Krishna, but not only do I want that, I want this and this and this and this also. Or my desire to be a devotee. Devotee means one who has devotion. A bhakta means one who has bhakti. It's actually very weak. But it's not that all my desires are weak. But I have other desires that are not at all weak. So how to cultivate the desire to please Krishna? So that's a meditation for us. Okay, raise your hand for our next question.
We can play the previous question which you didn't answer.
Which question? We went to the next one. Okay, go ahead. Play it. What's the question? How can household? Yes. How did we do that? Must be Krishna's arrangement. Okay, how can household women raise their children in such a way? Is this indirect service?
Seems to be an indirect service for Krishna. Should they try to see this more directly by, maybe cooking in a temple or painting or something like this more directly, or is raising children and just having a household function, is that enough service? Is there enough service?
Yeah, the thing is, we should be Krishna conscious. Just like electrification. Touching electricity by one wire, another joining another wire. If the touch is there, factual, then the electricity is everywhere. Similarly, if our Krishna consciousness is lightly connected, then there is no question of direct or indirect. Because absolute world, there is no a difference. As soon as it is touched, with the direct connection. That is called disciplic succession. Because the connection is coming down one after another. So if we touch here the spiritual master who is connected by the same way, then the electric connection is there. There is no question of direct or indirect. Evam parampara prātam mangalāja sayati. Simply we have to see whether the connection is disconnected. If the connection is that tight, then the electricity comes without faith. So in our conditioned state, there will be so many doubts, so many implications. But the same thing as I gave you example, that don't be very much hasty to receive the result immediately. Simply we have to follow. We have to follow tat karma pravartana. This is advised by Rupa Goswami. 6 things we have to take particular care, and 6 things we have to avoid in order to be perfect in Krishna consciousness. So, Utsaha, Dhoijya, Nishchaya. The first principle is one must be very enthusiastic. He must believe that Krishna has said that Name Bhakta Pranasati. My devotee will never be vanquished. So, let me become Krishna's devotee, sincere. I must become Krishna's devotee, sincere. This is called enthusiasm. Then, Dhoijya. I have become Krishna's devotee, but still I am not feeling happy. How is that? So therefore you have to become patient. The enthusiasm must be there, you must be patient also. And Nishchaya. Nishchaya means you must be confident. Krishna has said that his devotee will never be vanquished, so surely I shall not be vanquished, even though I don't feel now. Let me do my duty. Utsaha, Vajja, Nishya, Tatta Karma Pravartana. But you have to do your duties as they are prescribed. Sato Vitte, there should be no duplicity. Sato Vitte means a plain dealing, straight dealing. Sato Vitte and Sadhu Sangha, and in the company of devotees. So one must be enthusiastic, one must be patient, one must be confident, one must execute the duty, one must associate with devotees, and one must be very honest in living. 6 things. If these 6 things are there, sure success. Similarly, there are 6 things which should be avoided. What are those? Pratyahara prayasascha prajalpa niyamagraha nunam janasangascha sarabhi bhakti pranasya. Pratyahara, too much eating or too much keeping bank balance or money, or collecting more than the necessities. Generally, too much eating is prohibited. We have to eat simply just to keep the body and soul nicely, to execute Krishna concept. Prayas. Prayas means taking some risky work, which is required too much endeavor, which would avoid it. Pratyahara prayasaprajalpa, nonsense talking, which has no connection to Krishna consciousness. Pratyahara prayasa prajalpa niyamagraha, following the rules, but actually I'm not very much careful and executing the work. So, niyamagraha means not to accept the rules and regulations, and another meaning is simply to accept the rules and regulations without good effect. Pratyahara prayasasya prajalpa niyamagraha, lulam, greediness, and janasangasya, and associating with non-devotees. These things are against execution of devotional service. And the first thing, the patience, enthusiasm, and confidence, these things are pure. So we have to take notice of the don'ts and do's. Then it will be all right. Do this, don't do this. There are 6 kinds of don't do this, and 6 kinds of do this. So that is it.
Okay, how did Prabhupada answer that? Raise your hand. Yes.
And by saying that service is service, it's not indirect. If it's service, then it's direct.
Yes, very good. And what else did he say in that regard? Yes.
If one is connected to Krishna, then you're connected. If you're properly connected.
Then there's no direct or indirect if there's actual connection to Krishna. And interesting, that's what he spoke about in the other one, that we have to connect what we're doing to Krishna. And then he spoke about disciplic succession in that regard too. If this is an authorized, prescribed duty in service, it's certainly connected. And then one has to be patient. So the question is, well, is it connected? Or the other question, the other way to put it is how to make what we're doing more connected so that it's pleasing to Krishna. So that is, yes, did you want to?
The interesting point Prabhupada made was that
The interesting point or one interesting point?
through the parampara, Prabhupada said we're already connected through the parampara. And you know, that's the example of the powerhouse that he often gives.
Yes. So what did he mean by that? I mean to say, if your guru is in the parampara, that means everything you're doing is connected?
No, you've got to follow the instructions because that's
Okay. And then it's connected. And then he said in the previous one, then you have to connect what you're doing in consciousness to Krishna, because that's the instruction too. Follow what I mean? So how to connect what we're doing in consciousness and then get it authorized, approved. Is this approved? Is this not approved? Is this proper? Is this not proper? Yes.
Well, the interesting thing that Prabhupada then said was, here's the do's that you do, and here's the don'ts that you don't do. And that'll keep your consciousness properly focused, so that you'll maintain that connection.
Very good. Okay, any last question? Is this all on one of these? Kirtaniya.
What's recreation purpose in
What are you hoping for?
I'll take anything.
Okay, go for it.
Recreation, dancing. Come on, dance with us. Is it not recreation? And when you get tired, take prasadam. You want more recreation than this? What is your answer? Is it not recreation? Why difficult? Dancing is difficult. Chant and dance. As you can come, anyone can come, everyone is welcome. We don't charge anything for this dancing. We go to ball dance and so many other dances and play for it. But we don't charge. We simply, these students simply beg something because we have to maintain. We don't charge anything. So if you simply come and dance and for recreation, it is very nice. Everything is there in Krishna consciousness. We want music, there is music. We want dancing, there is dancing. You can bring nice musical instruments, you can join. We distribute nice palatable dishes. So, practically this is a system of recreation only. If you seriously think, you find this system, there is no labor at all. Susukha. That is stated in the Bhagavad Gita in the 9th chapter, you find Susukha. Everything is pleasing and happy. Find out anything in our system that this is troublesome. Tell me, practically, anyone. This point is very troublesome. Just put your counter argument. Simply pleasing. It is simply recreation. That's all. You just point out, family, this point is not very recreation or not very unhappy person. Nothing. People want, that is their nature, just like the children. When they see that boys and girls are dancing, their children also dancing, automatically. This is spontaneous. This is life. And that is our real life in the spiritual world. There is no anxiety. Simple people are dancing and chanting and eating nicely. That's all. There is no factory. There is no labor. There is no technical institution. There is no need. These are all artificial. Anandamaya Vyasa, the Vedanta says, every living entity, God is Anandamaya, full of bliss and pleasure, and we are part and parcel of God, we are also the same quality. Anandamaya Vyasa. So, our whole process is to join the Supreme Anandama, Krishna, in his dance party. That will make us actually happy. Here we are trying to be happy by artificial means. And we are becoming frustrated. But if you actually be situated in Krishna consciousness, simply you revive your original position, joyful, simply joy. Anandamaya Vyasa, these are the Vedanta terms. Because our nature is Anandamaya. Everyone is trying to find out. In this Lasanika Avenue, there are so many restaurants, so many things and so many signboards. What? They are advertising, come on, here is Ananda, here is pleasure. He is advertising, and we are also doing. Like that, here is Ananda. So everyone is searching after Ananda, pleasure. But there is different standard of pleasure. The same thing, somebody are trying to find out pleasure from the material point of view. Somebody is trying to find pleasure from speculation, philosophy, poetry, or art. And somebody is trying to find out pleasure in the transcendental state. Everyone is trying to find out pleasure. That is our business only. Why you are working so hard day and night? Because you know at night I shall mix with that girl, or I shall mix with my wife, or I shall enjoy. Everyone is accepting all kinds of trouble to find out that pleasure. Pleasure is the ultimate goal. But we do not know where is the pleasure. That is the illusion. Real pleasure is in the transcendental form with Krishna. We find Krishna always jolly. There are so many pictures you see. And if you join, you become jolly. Have you seen any picture Krishna is walking with machine? Or have you seen any picture he is smoking? By nature, pleasure, you see. Pleasure. So you have to unfold yourself in that way, and you will find pleasure. Simply full of pleasure, that's all. Anandamaya Vyasa, by nature, simply playful. Not by artificial means. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitavhi. In the Brahma Samhita you find Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitavhi Stavitaiva Nirupa Taya Kalavhi Golokaiva Nivasatya Khilapa Bhuto Govindamadi Pursam Tamam Bhajami. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa. Rasa means the taste, the mellow. Just like we try to taste a sweet meat, a sweet candy, or anything. Why? Because there is a very nice taste. So everyone is trying to have some taste from everything. We want to enjoy sex life, and there is some taste. So that is called Adi, taste. So there are so many tastes. Here in the Brahma Samhita, Ananda Chinmaya Rasa. That taste, material taste, he may taste it, but it will be finished immediately. Finished. I say a few minutes. Suppose you have got very nice sweet meat. You taste it. You get, oh, it is very nice. Or take another. All right. And another, no, I don't. So material taste is finishable. It is not unlimited. But real taste is unlimited. If you taste one, then you cannot forget. It will go on, increasing. Anandamudi Baddhanam. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that this taste is simply increasing. Although it is ocean like, great, still it is increasing. Here you have seen ocean, it is limited. Your Pacific Ocean is tossing, but it is not increasing. If it increases, there is havoc. But by nature's law, by God's order, it does not come beyond its limit. Within the limit it is. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that there is an ocean of bliss, ocean of taste, of transcendental bliss, which is increasing. Anandamudi Bhajanam, Pratipadam Purnamita Sadhanam, Sarvatma Savanam, Param Vijayati Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. You will get by this chanting Hare Krishna, your pleasure potency increasing more and more. more and more.
Now you know what I mean when I said, when you ask a question to Prabhupada, you're never sure what the answer is going to be. And the question was, what is recreation? It was and is like being confronted. You have your conception and you want his answer and him to fit into your conception. And he refused to fit into your conception. He brought it to a different level, and it was very confronting. When there's such a tendency to want to get closer and closer and closer, but it is like fire. You have to be fire to get very close to fire. So what was Prabhupada's answer?
Everything that we do is recreation. All of the service that we do is actually recreation. Kirtan and prasadam is life. The goal of life is to seek pleasure. But material pleasure is only temporary. We don't understand where eternal pleasure or where the real pleasure is. So the real pleasure is in Krishna consciousness and Krishna experience. Chanting and dancing.
He specifically seemed to indicate dancing, didn't he? Especially in the beginning, before he brought us to the ocean of pleasure. Yes, Part. Yes, Prabhu.
Maharaj, that Prabhuji didn't say that. Does he remember that he was only doing recreation the whole day?
He said, you forgot to mention that everything we do is recreation all day long. That's all we do is have recreation. Was that correct? Did I understand correctly? Yeah, okay. Okay, got it? Okay. You know how to spell precocious? No. You Google it later, okay? Okay, let us end now. And there were some very interesting questions that... Remember, there are some very interesting questions that we've not yet heard the answers to. And one never knows what the answer is going to be unless one listens, and one will be very surprised often, and always interested. Okay, so right now it is just 2 or 3 minutes before 6, and we're going to begin Kirtan, the Leela Kirtan, at 6:30. And we have a very exciting Leela Kirtan. It's about to not be told what it is right now. We have to come on time or you won't know. Okay, go take prasadam. Hare Krishna, and see you soon.